And those projects, the projects that would come forward for those improvements, will show up here at the Capital Improvement Program Committee at some point, perhaps as early as this coming year. So I wanted us to have an opportunity to hear about what might be coming our way. Ask some questions now. They're not detailed project proposals, so there won't be any need or opportunity for us to take any committee action on them. The second reason for having us all meet today is, and you've all received it. I don't know if you've read through it perhaps as closely as I have, but within the plan for the Tax Increment Finance District is a provision that this committee will have responsibility for chairing the advisory committee that will be formed to not oversee, but to guide and understand the planning for the TIF and then make recommendations to the select board. And given that we're potentially going to be playing a fairly high profile role, I thought it was important for us to hear about it again now. And then the third reason is an opportunity for members of the public to hear more about this. After I learned about some of the details of the Tax Increment Finance District proposal, I went back and watched the UV Jam videos of select board meetings in February. It's been discussed 2 times at the February 10th meeting and at the February 24th meeting. The February 10th meeting was simply raising of the possibility, and our town manager Rob Houseman raised it with the select board and just asked for their thumbs up or down on whether to go ahead and start working on the plan. The February 24th meeting was a presentation of the plan, and it was a good discussion from what I watched. But in total, those 2 meetings really provided a public airing or opportunity for public hearing about the TIF, a total of, I think it was 59 minutes. So our meeting today, we're actually going to increase the amount of available information, at least through the public record, by about 150%. So that's another reason for us getting together. So I'll stop there. That's why I'm thanking you for being here, and the reason why I called this meeting when I hadn't warned you earlier that I would. But first, let's take a look at the official agenda. The first item up is a review of the agenda. Anybody have any questions or requests for changes to what's already there? The main thing today is going to be Rob's presentation about the tax increment financing proposal, and then our questions and the public's questions about it. Hearing nothing about changing the agenda, the next one business item we have to deal with is approval of our minutes of the last meeting we had, January 24th. Seems like a long time ago. And you received them twice. There was an amendment to the first draft that was sent out, and then it was revised. And that version that you've received and that you'll see attached to the agenda highlights the revision on page 2. Not extensive. So I'd like to ask if there's any further comment or request for amendment to the minutes of the meeting of the 24th of January. All right, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Okay. Jenny motion. Evan seconded. Are there any objections to approving the minutes of the meeting? Hearing none, they're approved by consensus. Thank you, everybody. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rob. He's going to take us through the particulars of the proposed tax increment finance district and the associated warrant article that's been prepared to enable it. So Rob, over to you.
Thanks, John. So thanks everyone for being here, and hopefully between Norm and myself, we can address some of the granular questions you may have. But let me start with a broad overview. What is it, and what are we trying to accomplish? What are the goals? You know, I think we should start with South Main Street. South Main Street sits on the CIP plan with a $13 million price tag, no funding opportunity scheduled, and no mechanism to move it forward to final design and construction. The other is the West Wheelock District. And the West Wheelock District, for those who have not experienced driving down or walking down West Wheelock, is in a state of change as we speak today. We have 25 West Wheelock under construction. We expect 41 and 43 West Wheelock to begin construction first quarter 26. There are other projects that are being discussed as we speak. And so there's some development implications to what we can do and how we time our improvements to enable things. I'll use the example of undergrounding utility, undergrounding power. There's going to be a point in which projects will be too far along to make changes in. And by moving relatively quickly, we create the opportunity for such things as undergrounding power on the West Wheelock corridor. So with that in mind, start with what is a TIF? It's an economic development tool. It creates opportunities to capture the net increase in value, tax value, to fund infrastructure improvements, town assets. And it uses, and again, I'll start with the premise that the general fund tax revenue as of April 1 will not change. That portion that goes into the general fund as of April 1 from either of these areas will not change. That baseline stays the same. It's the net increase after April 1 that would be collected and potentially used to fund the district improvements. Everybody appreciate that nuance. So there's no decrease in revenues going to the general fund. It's the capture.
What is that April 1 general fund number?
For our baseline tax?
Yeah.
Or what is our April 1 projected assessed value?
Around 41 million.
41 million for the entire
West Wheelock. That's the West Wheelock.
Not South Main.
Not South Main.
41.
But we do have the South Main numbers.
I don't.
Yeah.
I thought it was 17 in the.
I guess it's not. That might have been an error.
Yeah. Or that was the Wheelock part.
That's the district.
I mean, sorry, that's the. No.
Actually, let's go back to you.
Yeah,
what is? Let me make the question specific. What is the
Right now,
assessed value for the entire proposed district?
as of today, it's 24,561 or 562. Considering those change in zoning that we've been waiting to implement, so the value will change to 41,196 in total for the whole
district.
Right. So that'll be our base number.
As of April 1.
Not just West Wheelock, including South Main.
No, just West Wheelock.
Just West Wheelock.
Okay, so not the whole district then.
So what's the whole district?
We'll get you that information. Norm got my text at what time last night?
5:30.
Yeah, I was away for 2 days, and Norm.
Okay, so just to be clear, the 41 million baseline that we're talking about is not for the entire district. It's just for the West Wheelock portion.
We're seeing about a $15 million increase.
This is around 16 and change. Yeah.
For West Wheelock alone at the April 1st deadline. That's That doesn't go to the TIF. That's the.
Yeah, I know. I was just asking what, starting at the baseline.
Yeah.
So April 1, 2025, the West Wheelock corridor, its assessed valuation is estimated at $41 million. That's the baseline.
Yep.
Okay. And South Main, we don't have a baseline for that yet.
We'll get you that.
Okay.
We've run the numbers. We don't have them.
What was the $24 million figure?
That was the, what we'll call last year's assessment on West Wheelock.
Okay.
So without the implementation of the zoning change affecting the value.
And what's the zoning? There's a new contemplated zoning?
No, the zoning that went in place in 2022, the reval, the number we're talking about was the zoning has the ability to influence the value.
Right.
And until this recent project came forward, we didn't make those value adjustments.
For any
So that-
particular reason?
It was a decision done internally because we weren't sure whether we would see development out there.
Okay. So there's no new contemplated zoning change. It's really a
No.
2022
Yeah.
contemplated change, but we just have not applied the valuation updates until 2025.
We haven't applied the zoning changes that change the development.
That affect the market value of the properties.
All right. So I didn't mean to get off track. I just wanted to get to that one number. So 41 million, April 1 baseline for the West Wheelock corridor.
Right.
Okay, great.
For clarity, should we call it the main Wheelock district to
Sure.
align with?
I'm sorry, Jenny, what did you say?
I think we should refer to it as a main Wheelock district because that's how it's zoned. And there's one or two properties that are,
That's fine.
But that adds to the confusion because people think it includes Main Street,
right,
which it doesn't.
right. I didn't name it.
I need to just housekeeping. I need to not just housekeeping, but I need to introduce. Tara? Are you going to become the new school board member of the?
I think that's up for discussion.
Okay.
We're looking for someone to assist.
Tara's from the Hanover School Board, and Kim Hartman is our current school board member, and so Tara may be her successor, and maybe not. We'll find
Yeah,
out.
so to be fair, I was planning on being a member of the public because I have resigned from the school board, to be clear, as of like a few days ago. But the question is that the town select board nominated and appointed me individually to be on this committee. And so we figured if we have both, and we did not adopt the bylaws, which says it's a school board liaison person with an alternate ability. So we're both here and we figured we both checked the box. I'm happy to sit over there if you would like, but I just wanted to clarify it. You said it was okay to sit here, so it was kind of confusing.
And Tara, what is your last name?
Tara Vlozo.
Okay, all right, just so everyone who's watching at home knows as well. All right, go ahead. Thank you.
So I've already spoke to the base value versus the captured value, and the April 1 date is the base value date. So everything post April 1 will be that increase, whatever occurs in that increase will be the captured value. And what we've done is two things. One is done a build-out analysis based on the zoning and the number of potential beds. And the town of Hanover with multifamily calculates value based on number of beds in multifamily. And in this case, we have baseline data supported by sales that justifies the number that Norm used to do that build out. We used the lot size and zoning and came up with a build out number for each parcel. So
Bridge Park.
These are, I mean, they're certainly, based on sales that have occurred between, the parties on West Wheelock. I estimated based on the amount of acres that it's, you can get 210 beds per acre. And those will change as things are built because you might get more or less because of there's a lot that Dartmouth is developing right now. They're pushing that back as much as they can at a great expense to maximize the amount of beds. Not every participant would do that. So the density may be less on other lots. But we have to make some assumptions at this point, so early in the game. But based on that, we're looking at 1,424 beds. My base land values based on the sales that have occurred. We've had sales on the north side and on the south side. And I expected that in order for those sales to happen, there was a premium being paid to acquire those properties. And that was actually confirmed by Dan Jazinski. There was a premium of 30% on the north side, 20% on the south side. So what that yields is $43,000 per bed. That's one of my assumptions. On the north side, $39,000 a bed on the south side. Now, caveat to that is if Dartmouth develops the south side for what we'll call workforce housing versus student housing, the density may change there. So we don't know that yet. It's like kind of a crystal ball. And then the build out at the end of the day is I'm using a figure of $250,000 per bed. So and we did a build out at 25%, 50%, 100%. Obviously, this is going to take 10 years to accomplish.
So could you repeat the north side value per bed that you?
43,000 per bed for the land. That's
For the land.
For the land.
Okay.
And so in order to complete the 4/125 valuation, I had to look at we have a concept in appraisal called the highest and best use. Sometimes it's an alternative use to what it's being used for, which in this case, you may have housing that is not really supportive of what could be there. So you're going to look at land value and see if that land value rivals what's existing on the parcel. And if the land value exceeds what's existing on the parcel, you have a different highest and best use. So I did that for all the parcels on West Wheelock, and some of them went up a lot. Some of them didn't go up as much. For instance, condominiums tend to, when you have a lot and you divide it into condominiums, different ownership, that tends to yield a higher value. So there's a couple projects where the present value is very similar to the expected land value if they were to tear it down and build over. So those in most cases didn't change much, but where properties were being underutilized in this analysis, those values went up.
Could you just repeat? So you gave the per bed land costs, and then you said 250 per bed. So that includes land and construction.
Building.
Okay. And is that sort of our concept of evaluations that exist right now, or is that what it will be once we go through the revaluation?
Well,
whichever it is, I just want to make sure I understand.
Well, there's different locations for different housing. This is very valuable, abutting the campus, and it's sort of the highest value we're gonna attain.
Right, but if you were giving us this information, say on October 1st, after the revaluation had gone through, would it still be 250 per bed, or would it be a different amount?
That's market value. That's not a assessed value.
Okay.
So the idea is we're going through a revaluation, and so the numbers you see on the right, the 41 million is the base value. That will go up to 100%. In some cases, if nothing changes, it's gonna. So those numbers that I'm giving you,
100% of what?
Well,
It's gonna go up.
those numbers are at 70, they're at 70%. That's our common level of assessment as of today.
Okay,
So those numbers represent 70% of market value.
okay. The 41 million represents
Yeah.
70% of market value. And after the reval, they could go up to 100% of market value.
They will go up to 100%.
Of
Yeah.
market value,
Yeah,
okay.
all properties will.
Okay.
In other words, you're gonna have some that are gonna go up. You take the inverse of the 70%, some are gonna go up at a higher percentage and some are gonna go up at a lower percentage, depending on.
So overall though, when it will go from 41 million at 70% of market value up to what number? 58.6 million? At 100% of market
Yeah,
value?
58, almost 58.3.
Okay. At 100% market value.
Correct.
And that'll be as of what date?
Well, it'll happen this summer.
It'll hit the books on the December tax bill.
I mean, that difference between 41 and 15.3, where the TIF district to be approved would be captured for potential use in the TIF. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you, what?
So that would be the incremental increase in value. 58 minus 41.
Were the TIF increase to be approved at town meeting, that difference could be used in a future TIF.
But if the tax rate is lower, it almost,
Well, all other things being equal, that would be the differential we're talking about. And we can talk about other assumptions when we get into it.
Can I ask, does the TIF use for the baseline assessment the tax revenue on the April 1 date or the valuation?
It's the valuation.
It's the valuation. So if everyone's valuation is changed, the TIF does not, does capture the increase and the baseline does not reflect the full adjustment of the impact.
April 1 will reflect the values that Norm has just spoken to.
Okay.
The reval happens after April 1, so that'll be captured value.
Okay.
And the estimate is that the extra value would be $17 million. Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
well, I guess I was waiting to hear a little bit more. But at least you asked the question.
There's lots of what is that can be built into a model, but for the purpose of our discussion, the normative estimate is that after the reval, the assessed valuation of the West Wheelock corridor is going to rise by $17 million. Is that right? Okay.
So does that make sense? Like maybe we ought to just pause right there. So April 1, which was 3 days ago, is $41 million. That's the valuation, right? And if we do nothing when the reevaluation comes out to meet market value, we expect it to go up to 58, right? And if we do nothing, if we don't do the TIF, we'll use that $58 million number to collect taxes against, right? If we do the TIF, we will split that and we'll say, okay, we're going to do taxes on 41 million and that'll go into the general fund or however it goes today. And then we're going to say taxes on that 17 million is going to go to this TIF.
I'm actually confused.
70%.
I'm actually confused.
Yes.
So
95%.
Oh, 75% of it. Yeah. But that's the next detail. But yeah.
okay, so the $17 million is just attributable to the changing of the valuation up to 100% from 70. It's not the zoning. The zoning is different, which is already baked into the 41 as of April 1, despite there being some delay with the zoning change versus the implementation. Okay, that's the part that I was, two different pieces that probably impacted valuation a lot for those particular parcels.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And the only reason a different number is going on the books is because a reval is being done. I think I think I understand we're being required to do the revow early because of some state question of where we are.
No,
So
Well, actually, I don't want to.
I'll say that,
I think we are doing the revow off schedule. Is that
we're a
correct?
year ahead,
Okay,
and it's because our assessment ratio is so low.
okay, good. Okay, that's the reason. Because we're ahead of schedule, if we stay to the schedule, then the 41 million would stay on the books until the next time it's revamped. But we're doing it this year,
That's a
so.
dumb question, just because I'm sort of wrapping my head around a lot of newness. So when the tax rate, no, when the valuation changes, generally the tax rate stays even on a particular property. If you're imagining, you just sort of thought experiment, the entire town is raised 30%. I know that that's not really going to happen because some properties go up more than 30, some go down, averages out maybe at 30. So if we pretended that everything is just averaging out and the tax rate stays similar per property, the tax rate will change, but the overall tax burden per property might stay the same. That's the goal, right? You know, or the thought if everything goes up 30% evenly, we're spending the same amount of money, the tax burden per property would stay the same. The tax rate per $1,000 of value would
Right.
change,
Well-
but the tax bill would probably be the same.
well, if everything went up similarly, there'd be no need for me to be here. Because you would just change everything.
There's always improvements. There's always improvements.
How does the valuation go up and people don't pay more taxes? Because that's what we're talking about here, right?
So the taxes are about how much money the town spends.
Well,
So
there's the budget, there's
Right.
the amount to be raised by taxes, and then
Exactly.
there's the taxable value. Okay, and that determines a rate. If the amount to be raised doesn't change and the assessed value goes up, the rate goes down, but the pie may be split differently from taxpayer to taxpayer. And what I look at going into this, and I'll be educating the folks pretty soon, wanted to get through the first, all the building permit and bricks and mortar stuff. But different properties are going to be going up at different rates. Like condos are we're a little more aggressive in 21 on the condos. So those are at like 73%. Residential is like at 69, right around the 70, because our ratio is developed mostly because of residential sales.
Yeah.
And this downtown corridor is closer to 95 to 100%.
And these percentages are of market value. Is that
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. And then you have the what I'll call the commercial multifamily is outpacing all of that. So it's less than 70%. So that's going to go up, and that's going to absorb some of the where taxes right over here are going to actually go down because their values aren't going to go up that factor that all residential properties are going to go up. So and the tax rate is going to go down. The tax rate is going to go down.
I'm just trying to figure out what the bill is going to look for a particular property, like how this TIF is how it will work for these West Wheelock properties. So if, let's say a tax bill right now is $1 million on a property as of April 1, and then the valuation of the property, like all other town properties, is adjusted about 30%. It may go up more or less. So let's say the bill is going to be, for just simplicity, like 1.3 million instead of 1 million. Actually, no, the bill would stay the same 1 million if it's spread out through the town. So it means the $41 million valuation for the baseline, that per dollar tax revenue is going to be down significantly because the property is still paying the same amount of tax.
Well, they're percentage-wise, they're going to go. If you look at the proposed bill and what it was built at, that'll tell you that's a wholesale change because we're putting that back to 70% for the median assessed value. And what that also does is it allows it spreads the billing over 2 billing periods rather than us doing it.
But I think she's getting onto like a really important point here is that we're talking about all these valuation numbers, but if the actual amount of money that comes in the door is net flat.
Yeah.
How the heck are we gonna get any kind of money?
I'm just trying to figure out, well, no, you guys will get money. I'm just trying to figure out how to tax the school budget.
No, and that's, so this
The
is,
school budget is not going to go down.
Right,
I at
so-
least have never seen it go down since I've lived here. So now I'm
2021.
I'm imagining that $1 of tax revenue for April 1, 2025 is going to be a similar dollar of tax revenue for April 1, 2026, except now the base, if there was a TIF, 70% of the base approximately, because it's going to go up 30%, 70% would be going to the schools and the town and the county, and the 30% increase would go to the TIF. So it means that the school is going to get a lot less money because it's still $1 million tax bill, if that makes sense. So we're going to get a portion of 700,000 versus a portion of $1 million. And I'm wondering how, just in my mind, I'm trying to think about longer term impacts because we only have the same pot.
Yeah.
We're not really increasing the pot, but we still have to fund things like schools. So that's all I'm trying to figure out. And I apologize, I'm figuring it out.
I understand how you frame the question. I can't answer it.
Yeah.
But I will get you that answer.
Okay, because that's important. 'Cause it would be good to see it on paper. That would help my brain not.
Yeah, I think that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
It would be excellent to see the full spreadsheet model that lays all this out.
Sure.
and so what you've described, so I grew up, I most recently paid attention to this in Illinois. This is exactly how it works in Illinois.
Yeah.
TIFs are used in Illinois to take money out of schools and give to developers and developmental programs. Now, I'm not saying that's how it works here, but like, that's exactly how it works in Illinois, is exactly what you're
I have
describing.
no experience with this, so you're.
Well, let's come back to Hanover.
Yeah.
And let Norm and Rob continue with the presentation. Let's go through your overall presentation. Sorry to keep pulling you down into the weeds. But let's get through the whole presentation and then we can ask more questions.
Norm lives in the weeds.
We thought we'd let him out today.
So I just want to touch base on where TIFs are used today. Hanover has a TIF. I would say Hanover's TIF was an anomaly in that we purchased an existing facility. We didn't go through the establishment of the TIF, the design of a parking garage, the acquisition of the land, the construction of it, and the funding of that construction, and the rolling it over to a bond. We actually physically purchased the garage. It was built by the college, as I understand.
Yes.
But we went through those steps.
We didn't go through the design. We went through the analysis and we developed funding models and everything else, but the asset existed. Whereas what we're talking about here is taking the concept to design and construction.
We did go through the design here.
Go ahead.
And then we purchased it after we did that.
We didn't have as much input in the designs we would like to have had.
We own an asset that.
We did not have the say in the actual design.
Yeah.
We might have to.
So-
Other spaces.
So the TIF district boundary is presented here. I will speak to both West Wheelock and South Main. South Main, I'll start with in first year of COVID, we contemplated an effort to reconstruct South Main and then hit the pause button because there was a real risk of complete and absolute failure of our downtown. And anything we did that upset the merchants in the downtown's ability to stay alive would have crushed them. Schools, the students weren't here, downtown was hollow. We launched a whole host of programs to enable retail and restaurants to exist. So we hit pause, but in hitting pause, we did some design concepts. We hired a firm, GPI, who developed 3 concepts. Those concepts were vetted by bike walk, downtown business group, online survey, and that vetting put forward option 3. Option 3 is in our CIP today, carrying a $13 million price tag. So, with no funding source identified. So it sits on the shelf knowing we have to do something. And I'm going to mention something that took place a couple of weeks ago just to highlight some critical need. As we talk about this, we need to accept the fact that we have aging infrastructure that's failing. The sidewalks we walk on, I think we all see the cracks, the failures, the patches, and there's going to be a point where we have to do something, and it's either incremental patches or fixes or something bigger and a 50-year life expectancy. But for those who were in town when we had a couple of small water breaks, we had 8 water breaks on South Main Street. We have 2 water lines that are 110 years old.
One's 130.
And we had 8 breaks, 5 of which I think happened in a 38-hour window. An example of an aging infrastructure that we can fix in a piecemeal fashion or patch, or be bold and take on a project that enables us to do this. And the $13 million project that sits on the books today includes all the infrastructure under the ground.
Okay.
So I want to highlight that. Now, the opportunity here is, Norm has some numbers on South Main Street that we'll provide. We are actively engaged in conversations with developers, one of which has the potential to move a project forward in July. That project will.
Which project?
Davidson Block.
Okay.
It's a tear down rebuild of the back portion, going up a story, increasing beds, it's apartments. There's an example of projects and we're constantly in discussion with others. Most recently, another residential mixed use in the downtown core. So those numbers play into how we would help fund the TIF.
Okay.
Could you just remind me, were there recent zoning changes that affect Main Street?
Yep.
So this is something new. So is there also increase in the land value on Main Street, the way that we're seeing it on West Wheelock, because now there's more development potential?
Not in the same way as West Wheelock, because the commercial market, I don't want to speak to Norm, the commercial portion of the market is relatively flat, whereas the residential market is much higher. So as the development of residential units go up, that value goes up. But the overall
potential is there for all the buildings.
Yep.
And so each.
Well, I wouldn't say all the buildings. Structurally, some may not be able to be changed into like going up higher. I mean, that's where you get, when you have a small piece of land, the only way to sort of enhance that is to, either change what's on the second floor or third floor, or go up higher. And some buildings may not have the structural integrity to. So every case is going to be different. And
so the zoning change building height went from a max of 40 feet, 45 feet by special exception to a max of 55 feet. So it gives them an extra story without having to jump through the special exception process.
Does that automatically change the value of the land, even if the owners don't decide to leverage that new zoning option right now, because the long-term value of the property is a different landscape at that point?
well, the approach to valuing the downtown commercial properties is more of an income approach. In other words, there's 3 approaches to value. One is cost. Cost is generally the highest number, because everything would be new, cost of land, cost of construction. Then there's the sale value, and which in a downtown commercial area is really based on the cash flow. In other words, how much am I gonna, if I'm an investor buying a downtown commercial type property, what are my rents And what am I expected to achieve to pay my debt service and gain my return on and of my investment. So it's a different animal than sort of residential housing.
Even though some of it is mixed.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, to value a piece of downtown land is extremely difficult. Because there's, the only way you do that is by sales or an extraction method, and that extraction method wouldn't be that.
It's not a lot of data, right?
Yeah, so it's gonna be where people can take these properties, and be able to, add residential to the mix. Like, yeah.
Maybe it's simple.
So purpose of I don't know how much you want to dive into this. You all had a copy of the plan. The improvements I'll focus on the West Wheelock corridor. It's new drainage. It's new sidewalks, shared use paths, street lighting, burying of the undergrounding of utilities, adding street trees and improving the landscape. The cross sections starting from the right and moving to the left really started the intersection of Main and Wheelock. There's improvements to, and the bottom side of the page is the south. Top side is the college side or the north, just for orientation. The two red lines are the property right-of-way and as it exists today. So starting at Collis or Cask and Gauntlet and Collis, the sidewalk basically and the shared use path frame the property line to property line. We're using the entire corridor. We have a right turn lane. We have a bike lane, a protected bike lane. It's a 6-foot wide bike lane with a boundary that is paint, but it's still considered a protected bike lane. A through lane, a westbound lane, on-street parking, and a bi-directional shared use path. The shared use path concept really is trying to figure out how we address the ever-changing micromobility market that we're seeing. I'll use the term scooter to represent micromobility. The numbers are increasing rapidly, and by creating a bi-directional shared use path that's marked and demarcated as to how and where it can be used, this will enable safer mixed use opportunities, pedestrians, bikes, and scooters. There are examples throughout northern New England, cold weather climes where this is done. And some done well, some done not so well. And some seeing volumes in millions of users. And so the opportunity here is to look at how we can create this continuity on the north side from the waterfront to Main Street and perhaps beyond. And I think some of you are familiar with the concept the college is looking to roll out, which is an integrated shared use system from Park all the way back and through the campus itself. So there's going to be some opportunities to build into this. Yes, Brian.
Just a question. If you've got a bi-directional shared use path, what's the value of the single direction bike lane?
Excellent question. I'm going up the hill. I'm not going to cross the street. Well, there's two things. I'm going to frame it in this. We have, what's the correct term? High confidence.
Oh, the confidence thing? I think it's really about risk averse, but I really you have a lot of people who live on the north side of the street who also need to move around. And right now, and I don't know if there's plans to change this, but right now there are very few safe places to cross that street, even though there are destinations on both sides.
So we're talking about, I'm going to use the term high confidence cyclists versus low confidence cyclists. I don't ride on bike paths. I consider myself a high confidence cyclist. I ride in the bike lane. I'm the guy you guys honk at if you don't like the cyclists in the road. I'm not suggesting all of you do that, but I'm that guy. And I say that.
Is that you I almost?
I say that because I don't want to be the person on the bike path who's putting other people at risk. And I ride in this corridor with the speed of traffic. So
Just going down, going uphill.
yeah. Going up the hill, AM peak, I can ride faster than the traffic. But
Most riders aren't like Rob, like.
but we do have we have a spectrum. And in Hanover, we have a lot of high confidence riders. But I think the other issue really is where the housing is. No one's going to cross the street to the south who lives on the north to get on the bike lane. And that's the other concept here, unless they're not going up to Main Street or to campus. If they're going to West Street or if they're going into the core of the town, they might. So the purpose of this and the other driving factor, some might go, well, get rid of the bike lane on the south side. I don't think that would work, but it also requires.
You have another shared use.
Yeah. Well, no, it also requires for our maintenance to have at least 13 feet of pavement from the crown of the road to the curb line, because that's the width of the truck with the plow. So the bike lane affords us that without creating a transit, a road area that gives the sense that you can go faster than you should. You know, there are design elements here that influence how drivers behave. And then moving down, the red line on the north of the page, you'll see encroaches into the abutting property. That's Dartmouth College. So Dartmouth College would need to give up the use of a portion of their land to accommodate this fully. And this is in the 37 to 43 West Wheelock area. This is the very next project we're going to see. If you've been down the hill, you know they tore down the buildings. They're using it as a laydown area for the current project. That project will come through the planning board this summer, go through permitting this fall, and with the expectation of concrete in the ground as usual in January.
Rob, I just to be clear, the design pictures you're showing us, they are all concepts.
They're all concepts.
And these details will be worked out at an atomic level before projects are brought forward for the town to approve.
Yeah.
So just concepts today.
Preliminary design, not final.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So our goal is when we do this, we look at what's possible. And then we look at what's financially viable, you know, and if, you know, the conversations turn on what the lifespan is, you know, we try to do our downtown sidewalks in concrete and concrete curbing or granite curbing, you know, but there are costs to those. There's also lifespan differences. So the idea here is to look at what's potential and then use the next year, if this project, one, gets past, wins the support of the select board, two, gets on the warrant, three, gets voted in, create the committee, do the vetting, come up with a plan, and present to the next town meeting the project and how we look to fund it.
Which would be the 2026 town meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Kim, go ahead.
So just with that timeline, it seems like there might be like a year before, I mean, clearly there isn't a project during that development cycle. So what happens to the TIF tax revenue? Because from my understanding, it would be established immediately.
Yep.
So what happens to the TIF revenue if there's no project to fund?
Just sits there.
Just sits there.
And if we don't go forward with the TIF, it reverts back to the general fund.
Just the general fund. So that 75, and is it a 75-20? I know we haven't talked about that yet, but 75-25 split, so it would go automatically to the 25 general fund?
All
Like that.
all
The idea.
undesignated fund balance go back to the general fund, the undesignated fund.
I think it would, I think to be clear, it would revert to the full tax base.
Yes, not to the town's general
It
fund,
wouldn't go to a fund, right?
No, yeah,
Okay,
but to the towns or how it would normally process?
the full tax base, town, school, county, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
I heard general fund, and that's why I was
I'm
thinking
Yeah,
town, so that's why,
that's-
okay.
That's only the town's portion, goes to the general fund, but yeah, okay. So the school, what is collected, it would have otherwise gone to schools, will go to schools if we were to release it.
so I'm, the school, we collect the taxes and pay the school.
Yes, but that's not, it doesn't go to the general fund first.
Yeah,
yeah, that's clear. So I think we understand that.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think in that scenario you would, that the town would write a check to the school.
No.
Because the school sets their budget and then the town collects for that budget.
Yeah, on behalf of the school.
So it's based on whatever the assessed value is and what your deeds are. And then so we set the tax rate based on that. So I don't think it goes, if that money never gets spent, it would go to, it would lower everyone's tax burden, but it would probably hit the town.
Let me just get a legal response on this issue. So again, starting at Collis, working down the hill, this is actually right side, south side, left side, north side. This is what a cross section would look like. You have competent cyclists in the lane. You have micromobility and risk-averse cyclists on the shared use path. Moving down to 25, this is existing condition, proposed condition. What's important here is if you look under the cyclists in the yellow, that cyclist would be in the center line of the roadway right now. So the shift of the roadway itself will move to the south to afford the improvements on the north side and the south side. Going the wrong direction. And finally, here's the encroachment on the north side to Dartmouth College, retaining wall. This is necessary to allow for that center turn lane that's needed and to accommodate that full 10-foot shared use path on the north side. South Main Street, storm drainage improvements, water line replacement, upgrade underground electric. Pete's
That's sewer there too.
and sewer. That's next page.
Shooting match.
I think. I'll make sure sewer is in there. So, and then there's sidewalk expansion, bike infrastructure, or I'll refer to it as micromobility infrastructure, an opportunity to have flex street design. And what does that mean? Open streets concepts are something that really affords the repurposing of the travel lane and parking as an option. You can envision, some of you experienced Hanover when we used to have Street Fest, where we would close South Main Street. The curb line creates some option, reduces your options. So an open street concept would enable more flexibility, and one can envision a robust farmer's market on a Sunday or other things within the street right away where South Main Street were closed. So this design includes that optionality. The concept does. And then street trees and lighting. And this is option 3 as it exists on paper. It's the preferred option that was vetted back in 2020, 21. I think the survey had almost 300 participants. And what you'll see in this plan, starting at the left side, North Main and South Main with Wheelock, the use of bike boxes to allow bicyclists to take advantage of the intersection and get in front of vehicles if they were turning left, or to navigate to the right without being pinched off. A realignment at the Allen Street crosswalk. Those who have walked the Allen Street crosswalk, you know that it's off camber, it's a diagonal, it's not the shortest route, and there's some ADA issues with it. This will address that. Moving down the intersection with Lebanon, we go to a boxed intersection with bike box improvements for lighting and some bike lanes, and to ensure that we create safety for all users. Again, this is what the cross section looks like. What's important to note is by doing these improvements, the parklets go away. You're no longer sitting next to the travel lane, and pedestrians are no longer walking through the service area that happens with these outdoor seating. And the seating for restaurants becomes available adjacent to their building, because we now have a wide enough sidewalk to accommodate them on both sides. This is Allen and Leb. Left side's north, right side south. So anywhere you're going uphill, we try to give a bike lane. Anywhere you're going downhill and we don't have extra width, we use sharrows or shared lane arrows, because downhill bicyclists can generally move with traffic. Lebanon to Maple. This concept shows a cycle track, which is a separated path adjacent to the travelway. Again, this is concepts. Final thoughts: by adopting the plan, it creates a funding option. No TIF funds will be expended unless authorized by a subsequent town meeting. And without the adoption of the TIF, the town loses options to consider improvements funded by the TIF district. And what I mean by that is, every year that ticks by, the values of those properties that are under construction that net increase in assessed value can't be captured as a potential funding source for the TIF. So knowing full well that 25 West Wheelock is expected to come online in fall of 2026, it will be, so spring of 2026, April 1, we will see almost full value of that project. Without the TIF in place this year, we lose the option to potentially capture that as a funding source. It's not obligating it, but it creates the opportunity to capture. Questions?
So thinking back to Tara or Tara. Tara, thank you. So thinking back to Tara's observation, so it would not be a diversion of current school resources, right? It would be what would have otherwise been tax relief would be diverted to fund this infrastructure. So shaking your head.
No, if $1 now is now a year from now 70 cents, because the entire tax base of the town is going to go up about 30%, but the part that the school gets is only going to be based upon the 70% that it is now, that's a problem mathematically that we haven't really investigated yet. That's a problem. That's a serious, because where's the gap going to come from? It's going to come from increase in taxes. And I think that would be an important thing for us to talk about now, because there's not more pie unless you increase taxes. And we're going to be getting a much smaller piece of the pie for the schools. Absolutely.
I think the only pieces of pie that you're losing is the difference between the 41 and the 58. That number.
Plus the South Main
Yeah.
valuation change.
Well, but I mean, I think
We don't know.
well, the question really is, do for all those people on West Wheelock that, well, Dartmouth or whoever it is, are their tax bills going up from, they're going from this 21 to 41 number? Is their tax bill doubling?
Some of them are substantial. Some of Dartmouth's are going up. We had a meeting yesterday with them. But yeah, one of their properties is going up substantially.
Well, but what I'm getting at is there's this fuzzy, I think what you've hit on is there's just this fuzzy disconnect between, okay, we've got valuations. The valuations are super clear, right? Like you've put a lot of hard work into like calculating these valuations. And I think we all appreciate that. But if the tax amount collected isn't strictly locked to that, then we're just kind of making things up, right? Like, because it sounds like there's two choices. There's valuation, very clear, very transparent. And then there's a second decision. Oh, are we going to actually increase the tax bill for those people, right? Like that's a separate choice that's totally disconnected from this.
No, I don't, no, not at all. The tax bill is, so let me take a step back. There's infrastructure needs. And how we choose to pay for it is either general fund obligation or some other way.
Mhm.
The general fund obligation hits the taxpayer, 100%. The TIF, and I know.
I'm not saying anything.
The TIF uses that net increase in assessed value to pay the debt service.
I'm disagreeing with you fully. And I'm new to this, so I've just sort of deep dive, investigate, trying to figure out the lay of the land. TIFs are generally used to encourage the development, which is already happening. So right from the first step, you're not using this TIF the way that they are usually constructed and intended. So what you're trying to do is capture some revenue that's already in process, right? So I get that. And you're trying to do it before the reassessment. I also get that. What happens is there will be a net increase in the town valuation of the property base because of the already in process improvements. The TIF is not creating that. The TIF is just a means to redistribute monies that will already be coming to the town. The only way that any projects will get paid for, including funding of existing projects like schools and new capital improvements, is from the tax base. So you have to say, if we do this project, it will be paid for by the taxpayers. What you would be doing is just shifting the burden of the income that will already be coming into the town from existing projects and saying, instead of taking a slice for the school as usual and taking a slice to run the town as usual, we're going to reserve a whole bunch of those monies for this capital improvement project. So as soon as the normal bill comes in for the school, more of that will go to the tax base. And the residents of the town are going to say, oh my gosh, how are they managing these schools? Because our tax bill for the schools has now gone up some significant percent. They might not understand it's because the regular pool of tax revenue has been redistributed differently. That's the point of a TIF.
Well,
And just so, because for the last 6 years, I was the person doing this, right? When I go up and say your tax rate's going to go up 4% this year, it might go up X% higher, not sure what that is. And the reason for that is because the town did a project, and that's how we're going to explain our increase in our tax rate. I just want to be clear, it's still taxpayers, it's still going to be an X $1 million project coming from the same in total tax base. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear on
It's still
that.
value to the taxpayers too. They're getting something for it, but it's just to be clear, you're not creating any new revenue. You're just shifting revenue. And what it's going to look like in all future years of the TIF to the taxpayers is that the revenue addition, the addition to their tax bill is going to be blamed upon the school because that's how the monies will be shifted. So long as everyone knows that, that's what the TIF is being used for.
I understand that your comment, and I think I can answer that, but I'm not prepared to try to do it off the cuff today. I don't want to create the illusion of this is just revenue is going to come in no matter what. There's capacity limitations that we're trying to address. We know we need to do some enabling work. We also know that there's some time sensitivity to this as it relates to undergrounding of utilities. So, you know, we have stormwater, we have water, we have sewer. At some point, we will cross a threshold and say, there is incapacity in X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And that's part of what we're trying to address. If we want to truly see this corridor improved and support the housing that the zoning allows, that infrastructure has to be upgraded.
Everything that I've said about the funding mechanism is about the funding mechanism, and it is not at all a reflection on the value of this project. The value of the project is something that stands independently on its own, but I would also suggest that it's much more transparent to go to the taxpayers with this project and say, this is why we think that your tax bill should increase, because this is value and this is infrastructure and this is improvement, and it should stand on its own rather than redistributing funds via a TIF at this point, a year in advance of the project. And the sewer thing is compelling, but I was really concerned by a line in this plan, the 13 million option 3, that says new sewer piping and connections are not included. So the $13 million that I don't know if it's pre-COVID funds or post-COVID.
They are, I'm saying, I'm just telling
Then the plan needs to be,
my
Okay,
estimate included sewer.
because that was
My
scary
estimate
to read that.
included sewer,
Okay.
all infrastructure.
yeah, Tara, thank you. I think that stated the, or helped clarify the confusion very well. This is a discussion about two different things from my perspective. The first thing is the proposed improvements for the West Wheelock and the South Main Street corridor, the improvements. They're right now they're just design concepts, but they're very good design concepts. And I think a very cogent argument is being made, has been made, that they're needed at some point, sooner rather than later. The second part of this is how all that gets paid for. And what's confused me in this discussion and in the select board discussions that I've watched online is that the TIF and the projects seem to be mixed together. So we're not talking about improvement projects, we're talking about TIF projects, and they should be separated. The TIF is a mechanism for paying for those projects. And it obviously just having the discussion today, trying to understand where the money would come from, where it would go, how it would be distributed, how it would be held during the period when it's not being used. All of those are questions I think need to be answered. And I think that gets at Tara's point. People need to be satisfied that the TIF is the best way to go to pay for these projects and ensure that the tax burden for them is distributed fairly across all town taxpayers.
Can I just
Sure. No, yeah, please.
So, I think I agree totally with what John had suggested, and in my opinion, we're taking a dual track. We could just pay for this on a straight plain vanilla bond. We could implement a TIF. Now, not going forward with the district now means that we lose a significant factor with respect to the TIF. We lose some benefit. If you may not everyone may feel that as benefit, but it loses its potency. Let's put it that way. It loses its potency. So, and I think, for a year from now, I think we either go forward with the TIF or not, and maybe there's a sunset provision if you don't. These days, it's hard to trust government. But if you don't trust government, the select board, we could put in a sunset provision to the TIF. So that's, you know what, if you don't vote again for this, concurrent with going forward on the project and then going forward with the funding mechanism. But I think it'd be a real shame to lose the optionality of looking at the TIF. And I say that because there's a huge partner in all of this, which are the banks. This is going to be a borrowed project, whether it's borrowed by the TIF district, borrowed by the town. And the funding, the cash flow characteristics of the two are quite different because the TIF enables you to concentrate more cash sooner, which means paying down debt quicker, which means less interest expense. And if there was someone I wanted to shortchange in all of this, I would be, I'm okay paying less to the benefit of the financial institutions.
I think we're disagreeing because it's the same bucket of money. So if you've reserved a whole bunch of funds in the TIF district, you need to collect additional funds to pay for the rest of the standard expenses, the operating expenses of the town and the schools. So
it assumes that there's no additional borrowing that needs to occur outside of what the TIF needs. So if the schools need to provide, which by the way, we need all new roofs, HVAC, solarization, which we are far behind with the town, as I can go on about the capital electric school buses, which we had a grant for, which likely not going to happen anymore. So, all of those things, right, would also need to be borrowed, right? And now we're borrowing on a smaller, less of a pie kind of denominator. And you're saying they're getting additional, you're able to pay it down because you're taking the money from the
less
schools.
of a pie. It's not getting the incremental growth in the pie. But
Which we would get.
You would otherwise get. I understand you would
So
otherwise
less of
get.
a pie, yes.
Right.
it's even less of a pie because of the reassessment.
Right,
The
no,
reassessment changes the whole thing, and that I only figured out while sitting in this meeting here today. It's not just the incremental improvement, it's also the reassessment. You're basically saying, oh, you're keeping your base, but now let's devalue your base by at least 30% before there are any improvements, because the $17 million is only increase on base. It's not increase.
and
on
where's the incremental value? It's building residential workforce housing, which have students.
So I think all good points. And I think one solution to the confusion is we need to see actual numbers. It was kind of a longer discussion than I expected to just nail down what the $41 million April 1 valuation is, and then to make it clear that it was just for one part of the corridor. So I think we need to see the numbers. We need to see them with confidence and understand what are the cash flows going to be, at least as best they can be estimated now for this. And does it make sense to, based on those cash flows, use the TIF mechanism or not? I don't know the answer. I don't know what the cash flows are. I don't think you do yet either.
Well, it's going to be up to the individuals on Main Street to do something, and that is going to be a smaller part of the cash flow. Just the two projects of 37 to 43 and 25 would generate about $1,967,000 based on a.
Yeah, and I think bring it up to a higher level. Lay out your assumptions, and this is what we estimate is going to be the increased valuation for the entire district. This is what we estimate is going to be the incremental increase in tax in valuation. This is what we estimate to be the tax collection from that incremental increase. And this is what we estimate will be the slice of that incremental increase in taxation that is going to be kept by, that would not be going to the schools, it would not be going to the county, would not be going to the general fund, but would be kept by the TIF district. I'll call it a fund, even though it isn't such, but however, by whatever means the TIF money is being retained. That would be the pot of money that is not getting distributed to the other three entities. And we need to know, so based on your estimate with assumptions, what are those numbers?
So I kind of lost count of the S there. So if you could put that,
I'll write it out.
that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and we do appreciate all the work that you've done to prepare for this on very short notice. So like, I don't want you to feel like we're discounting this. This is a ton of work.
Well, to be honest, it's been a work in progress for a while. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, and as more data, you know, with, you know, versus.
So Carrie, go ahead, and then I want to go to the audience after this.
Yeah, and so, and I guess I need to better understand Tara's observation, because the same, I'll call it a ratchet effect that you might cut into revenues for schools, if that's correct, but I'd like to see the math on it, would ostensibly also cut into the town's municipal tax, right?
Yeah.
So we'd all be affected. So that's a dynamic that I would like to see spelled out, if that's the case or not the case. I had understood differently that it's all about incremental, but if you're saying it because of the revaluation, also digs into the existing pie, not just the new revenue stream, then that's something that I had not appreciated.
Well, it's that number is 0.006 of the total valuation in the town. In other words, our valuation sits at about 2.7 billion.
Right.
So 17 million is, you know, our growth of bricks and mortar every year is generally between 10 and 20 million, depending on what's happening. So, so we're not really, I mean, this, so to just explain, in my view, TIFs are set up for either blight, which just kind of over here, it's kind of blight, you know, with with the sidewalks and stuff, you know. Yeah, definitely not what, you know, not what.
Not compared to Camden, New Jersey.
Right. Or if you need to, it's kind of the build it and they will come scenario, like the Manchester Airport. They had a whole bunch of land. They had no infrastructure, no water, sewer, they had no roads. So they created a TIF. They built the roads, they brought the water and sewer in, and boom, all that infrastructure brought in, you know, all the industrial property to pay for that infrastructure. Otherwise, it would have never been done. And I would guess that, you know, some of the stuff on the south side would stall if things weren't done. That's just my personal opinion. I think Dartmouth will go ahead and do all the stuff on the north side, but they would be less inclined to think, or anyone would be less inclined to do the stuff on the south side if the redesign didn't happen. That's just my personal observation.
And I think just on this,
I
sorry,
just
just,
wanted to follow up on this.
can I just finish?
I just haven't talked yet. Is that okay? If I ask
Sure.
a question?
Yeah.
If it's following up on this, how are these things typically done? Like, can you explain some of the sidebar agreements that we would normally enter into? Because we're talking about potentially a loss of transparency. For me, this seemed like it was an opportunity for much greater transparency and oversight. That we have a lot of infrastructure that we need to improve. For those who don't think that there's blight, I suggest you walk the sidewalks.
No, I think, Jenny, I think we stipulate that the improvements are needed.
Right, okay.
No doubt about it.
Okay.
So maybe I'll try to tackle the question, Jenny.
It's about the sidebar.
So one of the things that I'll mention is that why doesn't Dartmouth do this? That's what I hear. Dartmouth should be forced to do this. And statutorily, there needs to be a rational nexus between off-site improvements necessitated by the project or projects. And what will happen if we don't move forward in one way or another, whether it's TIF or other funding option, is we will get piecemeal repair or replacement of portions of our assets in the areas that are directly impacted. So 25 West Wheelock, the sidewalk that's impacted, that's closed today, will be reconstructed. It'll be reconstructed as it sits today. Or maybe we require them to make it differently. But it'll be sitting there independent of the broader vision. It'll be a replacement in kind 99% of the time. We often, I'll use the example of Dartmouth Hall and the Hopkins Center, work with the college to facilitate their project by giving them use of our assets in Dartmouth Hall case, you may remember that the sidewalk and area adjacent to the campus was fenced off and closed. That was their loading zone. That was their, they cut trees, they damaged sidewalk. In exchange for their use of our asset, they paid the capital expense, the cost of materials for the improvements to college. It's not finished yet, but that's the type of sidebar agreement we work with. Hopkins Center is an example where our mobility hub is put into storage. Our sidewalk has been closed, and I say ours, the town's, giving them the ability to reconstruct the Hopkins Center and expand it. This fall, all of that's going back in, and other improvements are taking place as part of that sidebar agreement. With regards to this project, there's a scale or spectrum of potential options, and Dartmouth's desire may be the gold standard, and the town's may be the stainless steel standard, and the net difference has the potential to come up with a sidebar agreement where a contribution to allow for that gold standard to be implemented is addressed. We do that all the time. In my experience, in my now almost 9 years experience, we have examples. The Hood, the Hopkins Center, College Street, the sidewalk, the goat path on North College. Those who remember the goat path now.
Sewer pump station.
Sewer pump station. And the sewer pump station is a great example. That was in our CIP. It was a 2026 project.
Right.
That was necessitated. It needed to be completed in order to onboard Irving Institute and ECSC. And what we negotiated was Dartmouth funding the whole project, and we would pay them back in the time frame we had in the CIP for our portion of it. Those are the types of sidebar agreements that we work through. We don't have that yet because we don't have a concept or a plan or anything else. But I think it's important to know that gold standard versus stainless steel or whatever option we want to use as a comparison, that differential can be a negotiated settlement, a negotiated agreement. Is that what your question was?
I was just wondering also like how we could see those to understand them. 'Cause from my vantage, they're less transparent.
We would present that to you.
Well, we usually do memorandums of agreement that come to the select board. Anytime we've done that, like the wastewater pump station, there was a memorandum of agreement that the select board signed to agree to do that. So that was.
We waived, I mean, in that particular one, there was a lot of nuances. We waived the hookup fees.
Well, they included the hookup fees on top of it, which helped fund our portion.
We're going to be running out of time, and I haven't made good on giving the audience an opportunity to speak. And Rich, I think you had your hand up earlier.
Actually,
Identify yourself, please.
my name is Richard Greger. I'm Vice Chair of the Hanover Finance Committee, and my question actually directly or indirectly involved all of you. I kind of like to take a macroeconomic view of all this. And the question I have in a more general aspect is any at-risk funding, whether it be at a federal or state level. We have a DOGE that's been slashing and hacking things. We now have a COGE, which is the Committee on Government Efficiency from New Hampshire, potentially following the footsteps of DOGE. So I guess the foremost question I have in my mind, whether it's funding for maybe like the library, the How, or other, even though they're ancillary to the local budget, or even schools, for that example, that they get funding cut from the Department of Education. I don't know what's at risk, but I guess the concern I have is if this funding gets cut, what sort of burden is that going to place on the community, given that we're about to embark on a potentially very large project here? So I don't know if anybody can answer that question right now, but in my mind, and also given what's going on in the markets and tariffs and things like that, I feel like there's going to be a huge flux in the cost for these things, depending on where we're sourcing these materials. And finally, given potential economic instability, I know that, I think Kimmy said 2021, they did cut the school budget.
Yeah, so
Because people were being laid off and things like that. So we could be entering that.
Right, so we had a surplus, so the surplus flowed back, so we had a tax rate decrease
Right.
year over year. But no one knew it because it was a revaluation year, so everyone
Okay.
My fault again.
You remember, like, maybe it was
But
like.
I do want to remind everyone.
Yeah, okay. Well, the point being is that, to get community buy-in, if we go into a period of economic uncertainty and things like that, and we're looking at revalue and tax potential changes. And then if we have be blindsided by potential funding that we had relied on historically is no longer there, that's going to have to come from somewhere. And so I'm just trying to think about the biggest picture possible when we go into this. And so that's my comments.
That's good to keep in mind. Kim, you had.
Just directly answer, I mean, it could be a lot. The school board asked to have that exact document because our fund versus like our Title I, Title II funds, they kind of have different balance sheets, different books, right? And so, if all of our, our Title II, we've funded teachers through Title II funds because of the type of work that they do. So that can kind of flow back to general fund. That $300,000 electric school bus grant seems like it's a federal grant, seems like it's up in the air. We were awarded it and now. So I think, so to that and then on the state side, right, it depends on how much is in education. I don't even want to talk about that, but it can go either way.
So I would prefer that everybody kind of has a proactive view on this instead of being a reactive view. I mean, I think that's,
And our Medicaid funding was going up.
Right. So
I will say that as relatively new town manager, all of this makes all of our jobs difficult. And the challenge for us is the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost down the line, or the less opportunity, the less the scope of the project will be. It won't be a 50 or a 75-year vision. It'll be a patch and replace.
So when is the end date for this expected TIF project? I don't even know which bucket you want to call it as, but.
The TIP is not a project.
Well, I know, but so the project
financing.
obviously is going to have a lifespan, and if it's sewer, maybe it's 115 years, right? But like, as far as like now we're talking TIF district proposal.
Sure.
What's the lifespan for that? Because the parking garage, I think, ends in 2029. Something like that. Okay.
So, Pete, when was downtown sidewalks redone? 74?
It was late 70s.
So a 50-year life cycle with.
Okay, because it's not in the document.
The TIP would be 50 years.
No. She's asking what the life cycle is.
No, so
she's
I'm
asking
asking
for
for
the
the TIF, the duration, the district.
The duration.
The
of
lifetime of the
It'll be,
district.
so we have, that will be driven by potential revenue analysis and debt service to cover the costs. And we've done it on a 10, 15, and 20-year analysis so far, based on the projected number we have. But it's based on concept plans, not hard numbers. And one of the things that we regularly do is try to value engineer. And that's a euphemism for cut out things that may be unnecessary or expensive as we try to drive. I mean, I've worked with Pete for 9 years, and I would say that he's fiscally conservative with taxpayer money.
Quite. I'm not going to be here.
Let me, we're almost out of time. We are perhaps out of time. I wanted to make sure our faithful representatives of the Howell Library, do you have anything you'd like to ask or comment on?
Next agenda item, just we'll pipe in at that point.
What's
Not
that?
on the TIF, no.
Not on the tip.
Not
Okay.
this one.
Oh, okay. We might not be spending a lot of time on the next agenda item just because of time. Wait. Well, let's. I think we'll bring the discussion of the TIF proposal to a close now. Lots of questions that I no doubt we could still ask, and there will be an opportunity for those at the public hearing starting on Monday night. Nor I will write something up along the lines of the thought exercise I was describing, and it's one I think that can be reduced to defensible numbers. So that
Yeah, I
would be the idea.
think that'll be in concert with Ellen. Myself and Ellen will probably be able to
Okay.
handle that.
All right.
She's, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. One other business, and I've got just one item, and then I'll ask if there are others that are brief. I want to take this opportunity to recognize Kim Hartman for her very her very hard work on this committee and her input, and as we've even seen today, having her participate in our discussions has been invaluable. We hope you'll come back as a member of the general public.
I don't know if I'm off this committee. Maybe look at approving the bylaws.
We can have a discussion about that. But thank you very much. And Kim also just left the Hanover School Board.
Yes.
And so I think I heard in the news mentioned the other day of how it was George H.W. Bush who would state that public service is the highest calling, and I think we can thank Kim for answering that call.
At a very high level.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Hal, if you can give it to us fast, that would be
Oh,
great.
yeah. I just had a question on this was handed out at the podium here. And I had thought that the house coverage of our controls for our HVAC system that need to be replaced were, number one, above $100,000 and would be included in this FY26 budget. We aren't on here. A lot of these items are lower than $100,000, and we are in another packet, but with a different number that's like 40-some thousand.
So, yeah, I think
I can
Pete
answer that.
can answer that question. Yes.
So the 40,000 is something funded so we can make sure it works until we have the money to do the bigger fix.
Okay, so it's another big thing.
It's a short stopgap thing to make sure things still function long enough so that there is money enough to actually do what we need to do.
Okay.
So it buys us time.
So that's part of the operating budget, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why it fell out of the capital improvement in the capital budget.
I see. And do you know how much time it buys us?
It's got to be more than 4 years. So we've got a little bit of time, but not 10. I can't tell the exact number.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right, any other business?
I was just gonna say, Brian had that one question a while back and I just was, no, okay.
All right. Hearing no other business.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry. There was one study, you were going to do the study of all the other buildings similar to what the Howe did of the retro commissioning. Has that happened yet? And can we see that, or is it still?
That's a town manager.
Sure, I can.
Oh, sorry, that's separate.
The document itself is in the works. They've completed their inventory, their scheduling, their mechanical, electrical engineer to come up and walk through all our buildings. They've measured all the buildings. They've met with all the department heads. That report will be forthcoming, but one of the issues that needs to happen is that the 10-year, 15-year, 30-year horizons need to be vetted by department heads and town manager, because, there are things that may or may not be necessary. I think that the line is everybody wants a meeting room. The addition of a meeting room or addition of this or an addition of that. And at some point we need to be attuned to and aware of the fact that not everybody needs a meeting room. We can share meeting rooms like we do.
Send them to the Howe.
Send them like we use the Howe all the time.
Okay, forthcoming, thank you.
Thank you. So I think that is the conclusion of other business, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Rob, thank you very much for enabling such a broad discussion.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
And we'll
Thank you for
work
setting
on
this up,
getting
John.
the
This is super.